The US hits back at IS in Afghanistan with a drone attack, killing 2 high-profile extremists.
The fact that 2 of these individuals are no longer walking on the face of the earth, that's a good thing.
The British evacuation of civilians from Kabul has ended. The last flight has already left, with soldiers also on board, but hundreds are left behind.
It's time to close this phase of the operation now, but we haven't forgotten the people who still need to leave. We'll continue to do everything we can to help them.
Also on the programme, after banning plastic straws and earbuds, should plastic plates and cutlery be next on the list? More misery for Arsenal as Manchester City score 5. And marital bliss, the husband and wife who have both won gold at the Paralympics.
We both burst into tears and just say, we've done it. This is what we've been working for. It was just, it was absolutely unforgettable. It's a moment we'll always take with us now.
This is ITV News with Duncan Golestani.
Good evening. President Biden promised revenge for the terror attack on Kabul airport, and it came sooner than most expected. Last night, the US military killed 2 high-profile members of the Islamic State group in Afghanistan in a drone strike. The group is blamed for Thursday's suicide bombing, which killed around 200 people, including 2 British adults and the teenage child of another Briton. The last flight back to the UK, just for civilians, has now left Kabul, leaving behind hundreds of people thought to be eligible to come here. From Washington, our US correspondent Emma Murphy reports.
They are the final few, in the final hours of an airlift of spectacular scale. Young lives which will be lived far from home. Yet such is their reality. They barely flinch as the gunshots ring out around them. Those from who they flee are now in charge here. Uniformed and armed, they've agreed to allow the last of more than 120,000 to leave the land they now seek to command. The final British evacuation flight carrying civilians was among the flights leaving Kabul today. Some, but not all of those who were to be evacuated, made it out.
It's time to close this phase of the operation now, but we haven't forgotten the people who still need to leave. We'll continue to do everything we can to help them. Nor have we forgotten the brave, decent people of Afghanistan. They deserve to live in peace and security.
At Brize Norton, some of the last evacuees to the UK arrived with the troops who facilitated their escape. Servicemen and women who return, no doubt all too aware that after Thursday's ISIS-K attack at the airport, 13 of their American colleagues will not make such journeys home. Their names and faces are now being made public as the Pentagon told of a retaliatory drone strike against the group which killed them.
In this strike, they lost a planner and they lost a facilitator, and they've got 1 wounded. And the fact that 2 of these individuals are no longer walking on the face of the earth, that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the people of Afghanistan. It's a good thing for our troops and our forces at that airfield.
The US pullout from Afghanistan was deemed an end to a forever war. Before it is even complete, the first salvos in another phase appear to have begun.
Well, we'll hear from our political correspondent Shihab Khan in a moment, but first to Washington. Emma, there was a long Pentagon briefing today. What else did we learn from it?
Yes, the Pentagon gave us detail about that airstrike. We're told it was an over-the-horizon strike, which basically is intelligence speak for an assault that came from beyond Afghanistan's borders. So it's quite clear they had been monitoring those suspected members of the Islamic State group, and that was their decision to go ahead and strike them. They don't have that facility in Afghanistan, so they took that craft in from outside. And we also got a feeling that although that particular attack took out 2 people, which was more than we were originally told, there is certainly potential for further strikes. They are monitoring the intelligence constantly, and they say that they will do everything that they possibly can to protect Americans and also Afghans, as well as American infrastructure in Afghanistan. Now, as the Pentagon briefing was wrapping up, we were told that the bodies of those 13 servicemen and women are now being returned to the United States.
Emma, thank you. Shihab, let me bring you in here now. What happens to all those people who are left behind in Kabul but are entitled to come to Britain?
We know that the government has made a pledge for a long-term commitment. We've heard Boris Johnson say that over and over again over the last few weeks. When I spoke to the Defence Secretary earlier this week, he was saying that they'd be looking at potential third countries as different routes out. So if people in Afghanistan who are eligible manage to get to neighbouring countries, they could be processed there and then they could come into the United Kingdom. There's been a lot of talk of the Taliban potentially running the airport because people in government have been telling me they think it's in the Taliban's interest to have a fully functioning airport. And then if that happens, potentially commercial flights. But the truth is, at this stage, we just don't know. What we know is that there are pledges, there are commitments from the most senior people within the government, that there is appetite there to try and help the people of Afghanistan if they are eligible to come to the United Kingdom. But the truth is, it is up to whether or not, and is up to how, I should say, the Taliban actually run the country and what they do, and that will determine the steps that the government can take.
Shihab, thank you very much. Here, people with the Delta COVID variant are twice as likely to need hospital care than the Alpha variant. That's according to a major study led by Public Health England. Researchers also discovered that of those admitted to hospital, most were not fully vaccinated. That's led to experts again urging people to get fully vaccinated. Mark Mallet reports.
Sana Fahim Raja was admitted to hospital in June and spent almost 5 days fighting for her life in an intensive care unit. And she still carries the mental scars.
Seeing other people being taken off their ventilators in ICU was a thought to me that might be me next.
Sana now lives in fear of COVID.
I'm getting a lot of tiredness, breathlessness. I've got muscle weakness, so my arms, my legs ache. I get frightening nightmares still about ICU.
The Delta variant now accounts for most UK infections. A study of 43,000 cases in England found it doubles the risk of needing hospital treatment.
It is more transmissible. The good news is that if you're vaccinated, you are protected, not completely, that's the part of the issue here, but there's much, much higher levels of protection in terms of serious illness or hospitalisation.
A steady flow of people were arriving at this East London mosque earlier to get their COVID vaccine.
The Delta variant I'm quite worried about, so I'd rather be safe. I've got a child at home, I don't want to catch anything.
Considering that it's how bad it is, and I think it's better to just take the vaccine and just go on with your life. It's just a precaution.
While Sana's road to recovery is a slow one, it's one she's thankful for.
It's 2 months today when I was discharged from hospital. And believe it or not, when I walked out of hospital and had that breath of air, I was in tears.
With the UK's already high infection rate expected to go up further in the coming weeks, more and more people are being urged to get the COVID jab. Mark Mallet, ITV News.
The British Medical Association says a shortage of tubes used to collect blood is causing problems for the NHS. It says the shortage has put doctors and patients in a terrible, unenviable position, with GPs facing difficult choices about who gets blood tests and who doesn't. The government is considering whether to ban a wide range of single-use plastics. A consultation is being launched proposing an outright ban of plastic plates, cutlery and polystyrene cups in England. That's because, as Faye Barker reports, any sent to landfill sites can take centuries to break down.
The plastic that continues to pollute our planet, and a battle that hasn't gone away. After the ban last year on businesses supplying plastic straws, cotton buds and drink stirrers in England, the government's now turning to single-use cutlery, plastic plates and polystyrene cups. A consultation on banning their use to help with things like keeping our beaches clean will begin in the autumn, part of the government's commitment to prevent all avoidable plastic waste by 2042.
Making sure we treat plastic as a valuable resource rather than a sort of single-use disposable thing that can be easily thrown away. And that's a combined effort from government through to individuals and how we what we buy and how we dispose of the material we have.
When it comes to our rubbish in England, each person uses 18 single-use plastic plates a year and 37 single-use items of cutlery.
You'd be hard-pushed to say that that isn't plastic, but 100% compostable.
Alternatives to single-use plastic are available, including food containers and cutlery that are compostable.
As technology grows within the sector, there are very much products that do compete and will work in the same fashion as plastic, but without the microplastics, without damaging the environment.
100,000 sea mammals and turtles die every year around the world from eating plastic waste or getting tangled in it. But the tide is turning on how we use plastic, with the drive to clean up our environment. Faye Barker, ITV News.
Football, and just when Arsenal thought things couldn't get any worse today, they did. Hammered 5-0 by the champions Manchester City. Nick Thatcher has the action and the goals.
So it's the master and the pupil on the...
You need friends in football, and Pep Guardiola had defended his former assistant Mikel Arteta after Arsenal's shaky start to the new season. But on the pitch, his players wasted no time in piling on the pressure. A cross from Gabriel Jesus, headed in by Ilkay Gundogan, effortlessly opened the scoresheet. And minutes later, Bernardo Silva sliced the ball through a crumbling Arsenal defence to give a tap-in for Ferran Torres.
It's Ferran Torres!
Arsenal needed cool heads now more than ever, so many will question what Granit Xhaka was thinking with this two-footed lunge on João Cancelo. The ref was quick to see red.
It's a red card.
Could it get any worse? Well, yes. A Jack Grealish set-up saw Jesus slot in a third, and after the break, Rodri guided home a fourth, with Torres adding his second to complete the rout.
Number 5.
For the fans, a pointless Arsenal now languish at the bottom of the table, their worst league start in more than 60 years. Nick Thatcher, ITV News.
England also crushed India in the third test at Headingley. They clinched a memorable victory by an innings and 76 runs to level the series 1-1. It's also been a fantastic day for Paralympics GB in Tokyo. 2 athletes got a second gold each. There were also golds in the men's and women's 100 metres. And there's a new British cycling golden couple too. Husband and wife Neil and Laura Fackie both clinched the top spot in their events just a few minutes apart. Champrit Kara has all their stories.
How lovely, Mr. and Mrs. Fackie.
A joy shared and a medal doubled. 2 golds, 16 minutes apart. Neil Fackie raced to victory with his guide Matt Rotherham.
58.038.
I don't think I could have planned for this day to happen. Laura to break the world record, for us to break the world record, for us to all to get gold medals, and then have that moment with Laura when I finally managed to catch up with her and give her a hug, and we both burst into tears.
A world record too for Laura. After months of spurring each other on, paid off.
What's that been like as a husband and wife, both training for this?
You know what? During, obviously, lockdown for everyone, it was a real tough time. For us, it was absolutely brilliant to have another athlete in your house pushing you every single day. Was absolutely what I needed.
Team GB's success on the track didn't end there.
Oh, it's unbelievable!
Jodie Cundy, Kadina Cox and Jacko Van Gas claimed gold for the mixed team sprint. For Jodie, that means more gold medals than anyone else in Paralympics GB history.
I now have 8 gold medals. This one is number 8.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's something I didn't ever feel like I'd get to when I won my first one back in '96. So that seems like an absolute lifetime away.
As Great Britain climbs up the medal table, Maisie Summers-Newton's collection is mounting too.
Gold again from Maisie Summers-Newton.
She won her second gold of the Games in the SB6 100-metre breaststroke. And it was double gold in the athletics, as Team GB won both the women's and the men's T38 100 metres. Sophie Hahn's second gold and a personal best for Thomas Young.
To take Paralympic gold!
Following in the footsteps of his hero Usain Bolt, the smile says it all. A golden moment for Thomas, and yet more precious medals for this GB Paralympic team. Janabreet Kera, ITV News.
And that is it for now. I'll be back with the late news at 10 to 10. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.